And it's a new season, so we're back on air to kick this LFC season off. Joining me, we have Hassan and we have Paul. Guys, it's great to be back on the air. How you guys doing?
Good, yeah, great to be back. Great to start the season with such a good victory as well. I'm looking forward to this one.
Top of the league.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, we
what
are
was that
top,
tough to say there?
absolutely top of the league.
Yeah.
So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Home against West Ham. Uh, Overall impression for me today was kind of business as usual. It didn't. It kind of felt like we picked up exactly where we left off from last season. So that was my just really quick initial impression. It was just business as usual. Didn't feel out of place. Didn't feel anything. It was out of the norm here. It was a normal 4-0 victory for this Liverpool team. Paul, what did you feel?
I think today, listen, any sort of negatives, trying to find negatives in that, it would just be nitpicking, to be quite honest. I felt like we dismantled them without really firing on all cylinders. I always felt there was another gear that we could have gone up, but we didn't need to even hit our best to knock four past what I think is a really good team. West Ham's recruitment this summer has been really ambitious and really impressive. I think they were quite well drilled today as well and made life difficult for us. And I think to come away with a result like that, I just cannot complain. It's great to see Keita playing like the player we all knew he was. If you kept an eye on him at Leipzig, other players like Gomez impressed me. He readapted to a centre back role well, and even the front three, I thought maybe it's not as fluid as I've seen them, but they still work together really well. Wijnaldum also impressed me in a role I didn't actually think he was that suited to. All in all, I thought the team was really cohesive. We dealt really well with a team that was really well drilled, and it's left me really excited for the next game now.
Yeah, you're right. It was pretty. Again, there were some sloppy moments today. Especially in the front three. Firmino's touch really wasn't always there for him. But you know what? When you're playing sloppy and you run out 4-0 winners, the only thing left to do after that point is ask Hassan what he thought about
it. What I would say is, how many times do we win 4-0 with it being a bit boring? Because I think we had 5-6 chances in the game and we took 4 of them, basically. I don't think we were going at 100 miles per hour, box to box, going crazy. We were quite patient in our approach. And I mean, we unpicked West Ham, who were actually, what interested me is West Ham using the penalty box as a measure to play the offside trap, which it really worked in the first 10-15 minutes. Then we scored the first goal, ruined it a bit. They settled. We had a Salah chance, and then Mane scored. So, in a way, what the comparison I would make, it's a bit like United under Ferguson, which I have to say is as big a compliment I can give to an English side, I guess. And that they would just win 3-0 and be like, how the hell did they just win 3-0? I can't remember them just, bombarding the other side.
Yeah.
We just have, it's been a while since I can say this Liverpool side has so much quality. That's enough to win a ton of games. And the front line has that, but even though Firmino wasn't at it, I mean, Salah wasn't at it, he got a goal. Mane wasn't remarkable by any stretch of the imagination, he got 2. And
should have had 1.
I mean, and
that's true.
the midfield just he could have had 2, yes. And the midfield just did their job. The defense, you had the Arnautovic chance. You had 1 chance from a corner, and that's about it.
It was nothing.
West Ham couldn't create anything. So it was, just an efficient 4-0 win, which is, pretty efficient, I guess.
I mean, you mentioned about United starting off the season. It did feel a little bit like United of the 2000s, kind of, just they opened the season up at Old Trafford and whoever comes in, they're just going to knock them off 3-4-0 and start the season off on a good note. I give credit mostly to Klopp and his staff for getting this group ready, because they didn't seem like they were lethargic. They didn't seem to take anything for granted. They came out playing like as if we've continued on since May. Like we've played progressively every month since May, and this was just another day. And I give Klopp full credit for that. He and his staff are doing a phenomenal job in that regard. And West Ham, we talked about, obviously they started with that 4-3-3. They didn't really do much today in today's game. Felipe Anderson had a few moments here or there, where he maybe troubled Trent just a little bit, but overall, it was just that one Arnautovic chance. And their offside trap, do you think that was a wise strategy, considering they conceded 4 at the end of the day?
I think you can see why they did it, because Liverpool's attack is full of pace and we like to play balls in behind. So you can understand why they set up with an offside trap. And a couple of times it nearly worked. We did play a quite brinkmanship style of attack today, and one of our goals should have been disallowed for offside anyway. So I can sort of sympathise with the fact that they did set up that way. And it's not that they shouldn't have tried to play as offside. I just think that, barring that second goal from Mane, where the official should have flagged, I think it's testament to how well we attacked today at times, that we were able to think of ways through to actually break through that. And that's probably testament to work that we've been doing on the training ground. The team know how the teams are going to defend against them, and I think that's a really useful tool to have in your arsenal. So yeah, I can see why West Ham set up that way, but I think Liverpool did really well to still find a way through it.
What I would say is that on the Ferguson and United point, we also got a decision on offside for a goal. Yes, it is indeed like a Ferguson United side. I mean, look, if you're West Ham, you're just apparently the expected goals was 3.7 for us today, which is ridiculously high, by the way. But because if you look at all our goals, all 4 came from point blank range, besides the Mane one, basically, which was even still was a fairly clear chance. So, I mean, if you're West Ham, you just go think, look, this is a side that just reached the Champions League final. It's a side that's going to compete in this league, potential title contender. First game of the season, we have a ton of players who are still new to the side. I don't think West Ham will be, they'll say, well, we had some good moments defending that way with the offside trap. And I think we'll see more teams maybe approach it that way. Maybe City actually take a leave, because City will try to play a bit deeper against us this season. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you have 3 guys who last season in Europe alone scored as much as some Premier League sides did all season, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm actually okay if teams want to play this offside trap. If they're using the box being their barometer or their line through by which they judge whether or not they're going to go, I don't mind it actually, because the movement of Salah, Mane, and Firmino is so good that over the course of 90 minutes, if they're going to play that, I'm pretty sure we'll get a few chances. We'll eventually break it down, and as opposed to when teams just go deep and just keep frustrating us and pushing us wide all the time. That's where I felt like last season, especially early on in the last season, teams again were successful against us in terms of just hunkering down and pushing us wide and frustrating our team a lot. So if teams want to do this offside trap, go ahead. And basically, it's like in a fight, people sometimes say, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. In this case, don't leave it in the hands of the linesman to get the call right, because you end up getting what you got with Mane. As long as VAR is not there, go ahead, because you can't overturn that call. So, and then West Ham changed to a 4-2-3-1 in the second half, and for Felipe Anderson and Mikel Antonio switched sides. I thought in the second half they looked even worse, to be honest with you. They didn't do anything. Hassan has a a particular player in West Ham he's going to talk about later, so I'm gonna go there. We had a few debutants today: Nabi, Allison, and Shaqiri. Hassan, why don't you talk us through Allison's game today a little bit?
I mean, he could have gotten his guitar for most of the day, I guess. Just played a
Some of
few
his
tunes at
kicking
the
was
club.
off, though. Some of his kicking was off.
A couple. There was
Yeah,
one that
one or two.
was, I think it was under. There was a pass that barely got to Van Dijk, if I'm not mistaken, and another that was, it was an odd selection. Um, I would say just, he didn't have much of a preseason with us. Kicking is probably the one thing where you can get to the saves more easily. You can save balls relatively easier, but adapting to a certain line, adapting to how you're supposed to pass, that'll come. Look, he did it at Roma, so I'm not that concerned. But yeah, I mean, what did he he had one. People were saying, well, there was one cross he should have caught instead of punching it away. I just think that Van Dijk pulled away from the challenge right at the end, so he saw it late and he just decided, look, I'm just gonna put some distance on it, and he did. To be fair, he got like 20-25 meters on it. So all in all, you can see, let's say on the corner, the chance from the corner, he instantly caught it, all calm, nothing to it. Whereas last couple of seasons, we've had this issue where, like, I think, wasn't it Mignolet against Norwich from a corner? He basically dropped a ball and they just tapped it in. I think it was in 2015. I might have forgotten, but yeah. So we've had those moments where
mistakes from corners.
I mean, you can take your pick really with Mignolet, but I mean, just say pair of hands. I don't think he showed what he could do really today.
Notice how he doesn't slander Loris. See that? Notice how he doesn't slander Loris, because the thing is, Allison had a fine debut today. There's nothing wrong. I mean, if this is like Paul said earlier, if you're gonna look for negatives, you're just nitpicking at this point. So there's nothing to really look at.
I say one thing. The only reason why I didn't mention Karius was that Mignolet did the mistake from the corner. That's what I meant. I'm not gonna get into the final.
No.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. And Paul, so you run us through Nabi's game today. What do you think of Naby Keita?
There's something so unmistakable when you watch Naby Keita. It's, you know who he is. He plays with this sort of unique identity. When he carries the ball, he does something that no other player seems to do. He just lights up the field. And it was everything that I hoped when we signed him a year ago. You know, full of running, winning the ball back, finding teammates, making intelligent passes. His brilliant performance, I think, was exemplified in that one pass to Robertson, which I thought was just outstanding. Because he's already beaten a couple of men. He's got himself into this really great position to make the pass. And where some players, they use the outside of their boot to be a bit flashy, to show off, he did it because he knew it was the right thing to do in that moment. Because otherwise he would have had to break his stride to find Robertson. The pass would have been more awkward. But the technique was spot on. It was exactly what he needed to do. So he not only made the pass to Robertson, but he also basically made half of the cross as well. And that's the kind of thing that Naby Keita does. He makes it so much easier for other players. And he was such an important part of us finally breaking West Ham down. I say finally, it took us about 20 minutes, but he was such an important part of that, of us beating that offside trap that we were talking about before. And I look at him, every time he gets on the ball, I always think he's going to make something happen. That's exactly what he did today. I think he turned the game in our favour in the first half.
His
performance.
wait
to see what he does for us this season. I think he's going to get even better.
I mean, this is vintage. This was vintage Keita. Like, if you watch him for Salzburg, if you watched him for RBL as well, this is what he does. He picks up the ball, he drives, and okay, with the exception of the scoring, it was a vintage performance from Naby today. It was. This is what he does. I mean, you're not gonna get him to sit back and ping a ball here and ping a ball there. I'm sure he can do it, but that's not his game. This is his game right here, winning the ball back in the press. And just again, you know what? For that goal that we scored, the Salah opener, one piece of credit I want to give to Trent's ball that went into Naby. That was a really good ball. Completely bypassed, I think, 2 or 3 West Ham players, and then it was. You know, you could just see at that point, like, this is going to be a big opportunity right here, and
100%.
yeah, it was terrific. You know, it was Naby Keita is a terrific player, and I'll round out Shaqiri. He made his debut as well, albeit off the bench. I thought it's hard to really, didn't really do anything wrong, didn't really do much in terms of the game. He looked energetic, which is a good thing, I guess, for him. Considering the criticism that he's receiving from pundits and some former players that he doesn't work too hard.
Charlie Adam.
Charlie Adam, whose physique itself is testament to all the hard work he does.
I mean, it's a bit rich for Charlie Adam to complain about someone
exactly.
else's fitness.
Yeah.
Fitness, but his work, they critiqued his work rate. The man was keeping Stoke up. Charlie Adam was not going to keep Stoke up. Stoke was going to stay up, it was going to be because of Shaqiri. Nobody else.
It's just proper revisionism to think that Shaqiri was anything other than their best player last season. I don't get this clamour to pin it all on him. It's almost like, oh yeah, he's a good player, but he wasn't quite good enough to keep us up. So, all right, well, look at yourselves then. What exactly have you done to help him?
This whole Shaqiri business, and the fact that Gary Neville also mentioned it for some bizarre reason. Again, I'm not comparing it to the Karius situation of a couple of years ago when he had that mistake against Bournemouth. But it just feels like a narrative starts to take shape when it's not warranted. Shaqiri is a fine player. He's been a fine player for Switzerland. He's been a fine player for Stoke and Bayern before that. Again, let's be honest about it. I think he'll be a really good player. I think that this West Ham game, if it were match day 14 or something, he might have actually started this game because I think it's going to be in these kinds of games, the games against like Crystal Palace at home, Cardiff at home, that he and Sturridge are probably going to get some run and a start here or there in games like this.
One thing I've got to say, just to interject on Shaqiri, is that a lot of people, a lot of pundits who don't just think that he's lazy, one complaint they've got is that maybe his decision making can be a little bit suspect. I thought actually his team play today was really great. I think he chose the right option every time. Really impressive range of passing as well. I think he's taken to the tactical brief really nicely. And by the way, did you see his face when he was about to come on the field?
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen a Liverpool player more thrilled to make it onto the field, and I love seeing that.
His first day in all the pictures at Melwood and stuff, he just seemed just really, really happy to be part of this setup here, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
I don't think he's happy to be part of the setup. I just think he's relieved he doesn't have to play with Charlie Adam again.
He's not that.
It's like, no chance I'm taking this opportunity.
The one thing I feel sorry for Shaqiri about at least his time at Stoke was did he ever get a chance to play with Kenwyne Jones?
We were linked to Kenwyne Jones, by the way.
I know we were. No, that would have been great.
At the time, it might have been better than David and Gog, to be fair.
But all right, so I'm gonna make this shift real quick. So Hassan, Paul, and I, before we decided to do this podcast, Hassan's idea actually was we'll bring up our 3 most intriguing players who have signed in the Premier League this season. So it's going to be pretty much the scope is going to be the Premier League. So I think we'll give our players. We'll run through it that way, and we'll give a few opinions and stuff. Hassan, we'll start with you. Who's your first player you want to tell us about? Intriguing signing of this season.
The guy I'm going with is, well, he was the top scorer of the Eredivisie last season. Ali Rida Janbakhsh, who was with Al Zad Alkmaar. He is an Iranian right winger mostly, although I would say what makes me intrigued by him a lot is I have no idea how Chris Houghton will use him this season. Um, I can see him playing on the right. I can see him playing on the left. I can see him even playing up top on some occasions. He's technically good. I wouldn't say he's that pacey. He has decent pace to him. But what makes him so interesting is just he's so intelligent with his movement, and his ability to find space is just excellent really at times. He was someone who, even if Liverpool decided maybe we can use this guy as a backup, I would have said it's a risk worth taking. They got him, I think, for £70 million. What I would say I expect from it is there are certain games in which I don't think people will understand how potential his value to Brighton will be. Him along with another guy they signed, Bissouma, might be two guys who in a year or two some of the bigger clubs will be looking at because they're just two really good players. And Jan Baksh especially, I can see him getting 10 goals, get it double digits this season.
So that's what I was going to ask you. You're going to go over under 10 for this.
I would say if I'm going to predict a number, it's going to be like 8 goals, 6-7 assists.
So he's not. Is he going to be Michu number 2?
No. I would say because he's technically better than Michu, he's younger, he is quicker. So I would say he has a better chance of lasting more than Michu. I don't think he'll have the impact Michu had his first season at Swansea. But I think Brighton, some people have them going down, by the way. If they are going to go down, it'll probably be the defense. But I think because they signed the likes of Jean Barche, I think, and Florian Andone, actually, I think Brighton had a good summer, especially getting players up top. So I think he'll be a key part of their season.
All right. Paul, who do you have?
So the first player I chose specifically to annoy Hassan because it's Jorginho at Chelsea.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. One of the complaints that I've heard about Jorginho, and Hassan's one of the people that does see it this way, is that his game's a little bit too simple. It's a bit too pared back. Now, I see it a bit differently. I think that the way Jorginho plays benefits from that simplicity. And I think that's the right way to play for him. Especially as well because they've got a new manager who's come in and he's building a new system there. And the familiarity that he'll have with Jorginho to impose that style. Because Jorginho was so important to the way Napoli played last year. I looked this up. 60% of the goals Napoli scored in Serie A last year had a Jorginho pass somewhere in the build-up. So he's actually extremely important to the way that midfield works. He's the most... he was the midfielder that contributed the most key passes. Also the most interceptions as well, which is a really important defensive stat. I think just overall, you're looking at a midfielder who, yeah, okay, he's not flashy. He's not an all-action kind of defensive midfielder like Allen or Lucas Torreira or someone like that. But the way he quietly goes about his business really helps the midfield to function. And I think for Maurizio Sarri, this could be sink or swim. Whether Jorginho performs or not, whether he can bring what he's done at Napoli over to Chelsea, I think might be the acid test for whether Sarri makes it as Chelsea manager or not.
Yeah, I've given you some grief about Jorginho many times, but I think Sarri said it right that City didn't need him, Chelsea needed him. Yeah. When he said that, and I actually fully agree because I actually really like the fit. Pairing him and Conte deeper is really it makes a lot of sense. And then you can play whoever you want ahead of them. You can play Loftus-Cheek in that advanced role. You can play Ross Barkley, as we saw the other day, in the advanced role. It gives them options. And then obviously you have Fabregas, who can rotate with Jorginho as well. But I like the fit, even though I didn't particularly want him signed at Liverpool. I was happy that we signed Fabinho. But I like the fit at Chelsea, and I agree with you. I think a lot of what Sarri wants to do with them is going to be predicated upon bringing his guy and making sure his guy can get them to function the way he wants them to function. Hassan, since this move was made to annoy you,
I shouldn't have said that, should I?
Why don't you go ahead and slander this pick?
I will not slander it because I've always said that Jorginho is a good player. I just didn't think he was a remarkable player by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's good at what he does. Although I do think that sometimes he has some weaknesses. I do think sometimes in bigger games, he struggles sometimes with intensity at times. He can be bypassed. Is he a good passer of the ball? Of course, no one's denying it. But he needs, I think, I do agree with this on Chelsea. Kante will cover a lot of the flaws he has, I think. And he'll be a great aid in that. And also, you forgot Kovacic, who will start in midfield for them. And as for the function of Chelsea, I'm just interested to see because especially if they're going to go with Jorginho, Kante, Kovacic, you're not going to get goals from midfield. Morata has shown to be pretty inconsistent on that front. They did it against Huddersfield, but I think Huddersfield are one of the two worst teams in the Premier League, along with Cardiff. So I still think that we can judge them later on this season.
Yep. So my first player was Kepa, the new world record. He's a world record now holder, I guess, for most expensive goalkeeper in the world. So basically, what I wanted to do was I wanted to compare him with the man he's replacing, Thibaut Courtois. So actually, first I should mention that he came from Bilbao, 80 million euros, I believe. He's only 23 years old, so he's really young. And he played, I believe, 26 games last season for Bilbao. And so one of the things I was looking at it, that he made 2.29 saves per goal, a little bit better than Courtois. Obviously, I think Courtois probably had a better defense. Courtois' distribution is considerably better. Kepa's distribution is roughly around 67%. Courtois was almost 75%. He tends to punch it a little bit more, but he also tends to catch the ball more than Courtois does. So essentially, you bought the most expensive goalkeeper in the world, and you sold what many would consider a better goalkeeper for more than half the price, I think, over there. Less than half the price, actually. But for me, he's an intriguing player because he may struggle a little bit this season. But I think overall, I think Chelsea will eventually have a really good keeper on their hands for the next probably decade if they decide to, do the right thing and keep signing him on the contracts before they, come close to expiring. But I do like him. I just, out of curiosity, average saves per goal, Alisson, 3.41. And of course, I had to bring in Loris Karius. He makes 2 saves per goal. So, Kepa's kind of right in the middle over there, between these guys. So, again, I think it's overpaying now, but I think overall, I think it'll be a good signing for Chelsea. Go on.
Can I defend? I'll say this about Kepa. You mentioned his distribution. To be fair to him, I think his distribution is good.
It's good. It is good.
Bilbao play more direct than Chelsea. And that's a big part, I think, in which why his passing may seem a bit lower. I think he kicked it longer. A lot more than Courtois did. especially since Chelsea have a back three and they tend
Hmm.
to. I mean, they're not possession based football team. They're not City, but they pass it a lot to their defenders, and I think that's why the percentage points differ there.
That's right. All right, Paul. Who is your second player?
So my second player is Sarri at Fulham.
Okay.
Now I can't claim really to have kept up with Sarri, and he's very much. I didn't get to see much of League One when he was there. But the reason it has caught my attention is that we're now in a situation where promoted teams in England are signing players that over the last couple of seasons could have gone to Barcelona, Chelsea, or Dortmund.
Or
It's been this
Milan.
kind of it's been this absolutely. It's been this really interesting sort of power shift. It's a symbol of how money in the Premier League is really beginning to change the culture of European football now. That even Fulham, with no disrespect to them, are competing for players that are catching the eye of real heavyweights like Dortmund, Milan, and that kind of teams like that. Now, as for Sarri himself, I think maybe at times he's a bit of a luxury. He doesn't really do any defending whatsoever. So I don't think he's going to add any kind of solidity to Fulham. And a lot of promoted teams probably would want that. They need a solid midfield. But he does average about 2 key passes a game, and that's really impressive. And I think instead of making Fulham quite tough to beat, he's going to make Fulham trouble teams. So I think it's a symbol of how adventurously they're approaching the Premier League. He's good in possession. He really doesn't give it away much, and it shows that they're not coming here to be passive. They're not coming here to park the bus. They're going for it. If you look at the business they've done, they're bringing in players like Vieto, who, okay, he hasn't really played much, but there's a talent in there. Obviously, they already have Sessegnon, who's a really bright talent. Simon Sergio Rico from Sevilla, even if it's on loan. This kind of business, it shows a well-run club really going the right way, and they've sold a vision of the club that's managed to turn the head of a midfielder that could have gone to Dortmund. I think it's a really positive sign for that club that they've come up to the Premier League, and that, as I said, they're absolutely going for it. I really don't think, to be honest, Fulham are going to be in much danger of going down. I think they're probably looking good, actually, for challenging for a top half finish. Maybe might even dare to dream about European football. Who knows? But I think they should do quite well this season. I think Sarri's going to be really, really important to that.
He creates as you mentioned, he has like 2 key passes a game. He creates like 2.31 chances per game. He intercepts his interception is almost at 1 a game. He doesn't tackle much at all, in fact. But again, I agree with you. I like him. He's just a player that helps a team like Fulham. Like, they're a team that can use a player like him. Hassan, I know you've been a fan of Sarri.
I think he's a good player. Well, it's not that he could have gone to Barcelona. He should have gone, but Nice demanded extra money right at the end. So that's why the move didn't materialize last summer. And I think it showed his performances last season weren't as good. I don't think he's a spectacular player. Some people were linking it. I don't think he's the level of Barcelona or Liverpool for that matter. But if you're Fulham and you have a guy who, he is a guy who might start for, let's say, he would easily start, I think, for Everton, for example. If you're Fulham, you're just being promoted, and you can get a guy like that, you'd be so pleased. And another player I'll mention from Fulham is Anguissa, who was signed for £30 million. Now, he is an absolute destroyer. He has some brain farts, and he's not the best on the ball. But the guy can just destroy things along the way. He'll remind some people of Momo Sissoko.
Is he your second player?
No, he's not. My second player is Fabian Schär, who Newcastle signed from Deportivo.
Rafa.
If anyone can unlock this guy, it has to be Rafa Benitez. His career has been a very, very strange one to follow from let's say 2012. When he was at Basel, he was one of the best young defenders in Europe. He was a guy who was a key part of a side that reached the Europa League semi-finals, which is no easy feat for a side like that. I think he overstayed at Basel about a season. He was a part of the side that actually who knocked us out from the group stage in 2014. He went to Hoffenheim, didn't do well for a side that was flirting with relegation. Nagelsmann comes in, he was out of the side. Last summer, he goes to Deportivo, they get relegated. And I'm not saying it's on him. He hasn't maybe performed as well as he could have. He has certainly done really well for Switzerland, much better at the international level, than at club level. But he'll have a manager who can figure him out as well as anyone. If you like, Jamal Lascelles has turned into one of the best English center backs under Rafa Benitez.
Why don't you say what it is? He's one of the best center backs in the world, according to you.
No, I've said I think Jamal Lascelles might be the best English center back around. Which, again, it's not like we're comparing him to Boateng, Piqué, Ramos, or anyone like that. I'm comparing him to Harry Maguire, Gary Cahill, and John Stones. The center half position is so deep that Chris Smalling is in the top 8. Let's say it as it is.
Just take it easy, damn it.
You're saying it as if I've just said, well, he's better than Miranda and Thiago Silva. I did not say that.
Okay, since he brought up Jamal Lascelles, okay, Fabian Schär's statistics. I'm looking at them right now. Tackles 1.68. These are all per 90. Lascelles 0.62. He doesn't even hit one tackle in the game. Interception. One.
That might not be a bad thing, though.
No, I agree. But
like centre backs that tackle infrequently are often better. Like Maldini hardly ever made a tackle. Jaap Stam was famously sold by United because he stopped tackling, and they realised they'd made a mistake because the fact that he stopped tackling meant that he'd gotten better at defending.
Now, so here's the thing:
isn't making that many tackles. Maybe it's testament to the fact that he's not needing to make them. Maybe it's testament to good anticipation.
Now, interceptions. Schär is almost at 2 a game, 1.94. Lascelles 0.82. So he's flirting with 1 a game. Now, the place where Lascelles really is much better is in aerial duels 1. He wins them 68% of the time. Schär is about 55% of the time. So, again, I think they'll be good, but I expect Schär to actually be the better defender this season.
I would say this. I think what would work out between the two, Schär is the more aggressive defender. And if you look at Lascelles' clearances, because he plays a lot on the cover, because
let's look at that right now.
You can. I think he clears. I'm gonna throw out a number. It's gonna be around 8 a game.
Let me find it right now. He is 7.24. And for Schär is 5.74. So
and that I think. Look, Lascelles does a lot of the organizing at the back, and they have a keeper in Dubravka who is a really good keeper, I think, who has really impressed me since he's come from Sparta Prague. And just what makes me interested in Schär is that the way he carries the ball forward reminds me a bit of Agar, who is a favorite of Rafa, I guess. And it's just that if he needs to kickstart his club career, he's still 26 or 27. As a centre back, you still have time. If Klavan can sign for Liverpool at 32, so can Schär. So, look at the bright side.
Of course, and the fee is actually not high, so that's another good
it's
thing.
a bargain price relative.
Exactly, it's a real bargain price.
And they're not desperate for him to succeed in a sense. They have Clark, who's okay at this level, like he'll pass. They have Lejeune, and they signed Federico Fernandez. So Schär is in position to not totally be under pressure, and he might even be the leader of that defense soon if Lascelles leaves.
Yep, that's very likely. So my second player is Rachid Ghazal. He signed for Leicester after Mahrez left. He's a 26-year-old from Monaco. And I like the deal. He signed for only 14 million euros. It's really not a lot. Now, he's inconsistent. I think Hassan and I have discussed this in the past. When he signed over there, he has his inconsistencies. The way I look at it is that he has about one key pass a game, and he creates about 1.3 chances a game. If you're asking him to replace Mahrez like for like, you're not going to get that. Mahrez is a much better player than he is, but he has talent. And if you're Leicester, and Leicester is probably looking at best case scenario as a top 10 finish, I think he's a player that could possibly, if he breaks out, he could possibly land you in a top 10 finish. Paul, you liked a little bit of what you saw from him the other day against United, right?
I thought he looked quite bright. He didn't really do anything that made me go, "Wow, they've got a player here." If anyone at Leicester did that, it was Maddison. The way he stepped up from being in the Championship last season, and he didn't look intimidated by the occasion. Yeah, Ghazal looked smart. He was full of running. He was quick, and yeah, as I said, he was quite bright, but he wasn't the Leicester player tonight that made me think, hang on a sec, they've got a player here.
For me, best case scenario for him is if he becomes something like Jeremy Menez. Like, that's what I would say. That's best case scenario for him. Hassan, go ahead. Slander.
Every kind of shadow striker sort of thing.
But best case is, he a little bit on the wing, maybe even a little centrally from time to time. Hassan, go on. Slander it.
I won't slander it because I think it was 2 seasons ago he went on this run with Lyon, and he almost got them. He got them. He helped them establish a place in the Europa League places. But for all his ability, he has yet to show an end product to couple with it. Besides that one season, at times he looks like a futsal player who is being given a trial on the bigger stage. He's fairly, he's fairly tall for winger. I think he's 182, 183, and he has really good close control. But what I would say, what worries me at this level, can he adapt to the pace a bit more from France as a step up? Can he, just consistently deliver, because he's yet to show it. Now, what I would say would help him is that on that right-hand side, they have a guy in Ricardo Pereira, who I might have gotten into this discussion, but I think he'll be such a success for Leicester, who's an excellent fullback, can play at the right, as a right back or a left back, so good going forward. And I think Ghazal might enjoy having him around because, it's a bit like the Pienaar Baines combination, the most iconic David Moyes combination ever, in which Pienaar would cut inside, stop, give a pass to Baines, who just crosses it in. I can see that happening at Leicester with Ghazal and Pereira. And they have a striker in Vardy who can get into a great position, so that's good for them.
I think Leicester's fortunes will depend on Amarte, and not so much any of these other guys. If Daniel Amarte,
dear God,
Daniel Amarte plays well, they'll do well. And I'll round up my third player. Is Jefferson Lerma. He is 23 years old and he signed from Levante. He is for 28 million euros, I believe. So he's Bournemouth's most expensive signing to date. It's probably one of those situations where he'll probably partner with Lewis Cook if they're going with two at the top, with Joshua King, Callum Wilson, who's one of my favorite players in the league. But that's a story for another day. He's just remarkably athletic, and he's just getting better and better with each season. Like his control is improving, his passing is improving. I actually pulled up some of the stats for him, and I compared it to some of the other players at Bournemouth, like who he'll be going up against. He'll be fighting for a position against Andrew Sermon and Dan Gosling as well, and he just smokes them. In terms of intercept defensively, he's terrific. In fact, him and Lewis Cook are probably the two best defenders at Bournemouth, and also their two best attackers as well. I'm talking from a midfield point of view. So I actually like this move. I think he'll fit Eddie Howe's team quite well, and him and Lewis Cook will actually be a pretty decent pairing in that midfield. Hassan, Jefferson Lerma, do you like the fit? Do you think he's going to set up a lot of goals for my guy Callum Wilson?
I wouldn't say he's an attacking player by any stretch of the imagination. I've not seen a ton of Levante, but what I've seen from Lerma, he's just he has a bit of a wrecking ball attribute to him. I think some of the things he does a bit reminds me of Wilfred Ndidi, actually. There's some similarities there. I think they're both, for example, guys who run with the ball better than they pass it. I think Lerma's passing can be wavered a bit at times. But, Bournemouth will benefit from his defensive work. He can be a bit trash, but what I would say, Bournemouth lacked athleticism in midfield.
They do.
You have Dan Gosling, who competes with Milner for who has the better gammon head in the Premier League. You have Lewis Cook, who's not an athlete either. Sermon is not an athlete. So, that will help with that side. And he'll offer protection for... Bournemouth concede a ton of goals. Yeah. So having an extra body in there will help them for certain. And I'm not sure they'll play with two in midfield. They might go for three a lot of times, I think.
Callum Wilson can handle the role. The lone striker role as well as any striker in the league. So it doesn't matter if they want to go three in midfield. Just saying.
Yeah, he's basically the new Ian Rush.
Just don't slander him. We have decided that there's no Callum Wilson slander on this podcast.
I'm not sure we agree to that. But,
we'll get to the slander in just a bit.
Why not?
We'll get to the slander in just a bit. Paul, who's your third player here?
So my most intriguing signing of the summer, I've got to say, is no one. Because why didn't Spurs sign anyone?
Good point.
Every other team in the top six has made the big signing. Maybe apart from United with Fred, but other than that. And Spurs have sort of sat on their hands. And the best argument I've seen in favour of it is, okay, maybe it gives them a bit of stability and cohesion. If they don't need to get players up to speed. And it's obviously really, really important to keep your big players together. But the margin they finished above Liverpool wasn't that big. And Chelsea as well, who finished behind us, they had a really good window. So even with Kane, Eriksen, Ali, and so on, I think this is going to be a tough season for Spurs because a lot of the teams that they're in competition with have improved quite a lot. And the squad they've got, it's talented. It's obviously enormously talented, but there are still gaps. They could have used another midfielder. Maybe apart from Kane, the forward line doesn't have that much depth. They didn't even sign a young player that they could have developed. And okay, fine, the market's gone a little bit mental, but you can still find good players here and there. We've certainly done that, and I don't understand, unless it's financial with the stadium, I don't understand what the incentive is for Spurs really to sit on their hands in the market. But what I think is really, really interesting about it is, from our perspective, it's going to be a really good acid test to see how important are transfers, especially if they don't sign anyone in January and they go a whole season without signing anyone. We'll really find out how important transfers actually are. And I suspect the answer to that's going to be the transfers are really quite important. because I can see Spurs dropping off actually.
The only player that they were really linked to was Jack Grealish. Like,
I don't get that at all. I think he's a talented player. I think he's skillful. I like his directness and all of that. But I just think a club like that, given the fact that they've been in the Champions League, they have top players, they can pay top wages. Why is Grealish at the top of their shopping list? Get him in by all means, but is there no one who's been playing at a higher level more consistently for longer that they could find a way to bed into that team? Why was Grealish the one?
I mean, you could argue why did you settle for Grealish if Seri is going to Fulham?
That's true. And also as well, they offered 25 million for Grealish, who seemed to be the only player they were interested in. And they sniffed at an extra like 5 to 7 million. It's like, well, you've only got one player on your shopping list. Why is 5 million a deal breaker when it comes to that? Why are you being so precious about it? Something just doesn't seem to stack up about the way they've approached their business at all.
it's probably financial to do with the stadium. That's
could
the
well,
only sensible thing, because Spurs have not been a team that have shied away in the market. Even if they don't buy a lot, they still buy.
Yeah. They've always been quite canny, Spurs. I've always thought of them as a team that managed to just. I mean, Ericsson was signed for about 8 million. I don't think Ali was signed for an enormous amount. They always seem to find really good value in the market, and
Or Luca.
that's true as well. Maybe this summer they decided. Oh, sorry, I thought you said Luca as in Luka Modric.
No, I said Chor Luca.
Oh, sure, Luca. Okay, yeah. Disprove my point, why don't you? But yeah, they're the sort of team.
103 craps for Croatia. Don't insult Chor Luca. Okay.
Hey, he's got international experience. You know, he's played in for a team that reached the World Cup final. You know, he's not to be sniffed at. But you know, listen, just to round off what I wanted to say about Spurs, maybe part of it is they're a team that's always positioned themselves in the market as the ones that do that, those sort of canny deals. And maybe just because the market's gone crazy and you know you're spending 71 million quid on 23-year-old goalies from Bilbao, maybe they thought this summer they just wouldn't find value in it. Maybe that's been the motivation.
Awesome.
I just think it's an odd thing for them to do, especially because they're a bit thin in defensive midfield already. I mean, if you count the players they have, I think they have 5 center backs, and you're including Eric Dyer there. And when you look at the defensive midfield, they have 4 defensive midfielders, and you're counting Eric Dyer again. And in terms of a backup striker, Vincent Janssen didn't have a good time in his first season with Spurs. He struggled at Fenerbahce, I think, with injuries, if I'm not mistaken. So you'd have to play Son further forward if Kane ever goes down with an injury. Lucas Moura can get in and can play, yes. Lamela can play, yes. But also Lamela missed time with injury. Lucas Moura, his fitness is fairly inconsistent. So, you know, I just think maybe not change the whole side, but, you know, a couple of signings would have helped, especially since Alderweireld is leaving on a free this summer. And Dembele was close to leaving this summer. Danny Rose looked set to leave this summer. I mean, if you need bodies at least, so you're not going to count on Harry Winks to play against, you know, to play in Europe against the bigger sides. That's going to be really hard to do. So I just find it odd that they didn't sign anyone. As for Chorluka, you know how hard it is to be a footballer when you're as quick as molasses. It's really hard to do. So don't slander the man.
I'm not signing Chor Luca. I'm a big fan of Chor Luca. I remember those days at Spurs fondly. But, you know, Paul made a point about this will be, are they trying to keep this squad intact for continuity's sake? You know, the only way I can see that any team taking that kind of risk is if they won the league by 25 points. And then they said, you know, we don't have to improve this. You know, we're good. we're totally fine. And they just finished marginally above us, marginally. And the fact that they haven't improved, Daniel Levy really must be hoping that Pochettino does a really good job this season, or the likes of Chelsea under Sarri and Arsenal under Emery, they don't actually kick on, and they flop, and Jorginho flops and Chelsea flops as a result. So, so that's.
I think it's only continuity. I think he's betting on internal growth again. And the problem is, Ericsson, I'm not sure is going to grow a bit more in terms of his ability. He's 26 now. Son is about the same age. Kane is 25. You're no longer going to see the sort of improvement that makes Spurs go from they were sixth to I mainstay in the top four the last 2 seasons. You're not gonna get that, and the teams behind you, like I could see Arsenal, especially if Aubameyang and Lacazette can figure out the partnership, getting top 4 in some situation. And Chelsea's midfield now might be strong enough to compensate for a lack of a reliable forward, but for you to not sign anyone, again, it's not like you're asking for just a star name to come in. Just a couple of more players who can help along the way.
Again, Paul's Siri, for example, would have been a nice fit over there. He would have been really kind of what they needed a little bit. Actually, maybe Siri not so much, because they have Ali and they have Ericsson as well, but they do need a forward. If there's one thing that they're lacking, it's someone who can back up Kane reliably. Maybe they should have gone for Danny Ings. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't think you're that desperate.
I mean, Danny Ings is not a bad player, I think.
No, he's not by any stretch. Not a bad player.
He's not
maybe not up to the level of Spurs, though.
He could have done better than Vincent Janssen.
That would have been difficult, though, to be fair.
They should have signed Richarlison for 50. Although, to be fair, it was for 40 by Everton. But, he had a good debut.
He had a great debut. Let's call it what it is.
He started the season really well last time around and, didn't do much later on. So we'll see what he does there.
But the same goes for Marco Silva. So they'll be looking for a manager by February.
Silva with Hull and Watford, the first few weeks, wow, what is happening? And then you're like, what in the hell?
So our last segment is a segment that the only reason we brought it up is because on the forums, for some reason, since the turn of the year.
No, I did not mention my last player.
Oh, fuck, I forgot. I'm sorry.
You cannot do that.
For you, I will rule against you every time.
Try.
What are you gonna do? Feed me hummus?
That'd be a good thing. So no,
Sabra hummus. Sabra hummus, the best hummus.
I'm gonna hang up.
Sweet and smoky barbecue. Okay, who's your last player, Hassan?
This center back West Ham signed from Toulouse, which they did today. Issa Diop, who is he's a bit of a man mountain. I would say wrecking ball. The guy can really, he's physically so gifted. On the ball, he's not the best. Can he improve? I mean, he's still 22. But what makes me intrigued is that he's a player who I can see being a revelation. And at the same time, I can see him turning into a boom song or Titus Bramble. And what makes me intrigued is I'm not sure what will happen with him, because you can see all the attributes he has. He is He knows how to win the ball. He is strong in the challenge, but at the same time, as I mentioned, his on the ball ability is not the best. He may lose the ball. And if Pellegrini decides to change West Ham style, which I expect him to do, and have them play a bit more from the back, I can see some interesting moments happening for him. And what makes me intrigued is that he can easily be someone who, in 2 to 3 years, might be one of the most, demanded center backs from sides not in the top six of the Premier League. So I'm just intrigued to see what he does in England.
The thing is, I know so little about him. I just pulled up some of his stats right now. About 2.2 interceptions a game, by 1.37 tackles won. This is all per 90. 80% pass completion, which is not bad, and 50%, 57% of the aerial duels won as well. So I'm just relying on your very small scouting report there that he will be a success.
I wouldn't say he is a success. I think one player I would compare him to in terms of style, I'm not saying he's gonna be that. He sort of reminds me of Kolo Toure, because he is quick. I think I think he has a bit of quickness to him.
He's 6'4".
He's not the tallest. No, I don't think he's 6'4". I think he's shorter. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3".
That's what they list him at, 6'4".
I've seen him, and Julien, his partner in defense, was taller than him, and he is about that height. So I'll check on that, because he doesn't seem tall. Like, from whenever I've seen him, he isn't, because maybe partly because he isn't lanky. Julien is a bit more lanky than him. Diop is more stocky in his build. But yeah, I mean, he didn't start today. They started Ogbonna and they started Balbuena, who I have no idea who he is. When they signed him, I was like, who the hell is this human being? I've never heard of you. He's played like 5 times with Paraguay. No idea how he got the work permit either, unless he has a second citizenship. But yeah, Diop, I think, might be someone who we'll talk about in the next few years, potentially, or for good or bad, really.
All right. Paul, you have anything to add on Issa Diop?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't seen Toulouse play since we played them in Europe in 2007. So, no, I know absolutely zero about him. One thing I will say is that interception stats piqued my interest. Sounds like actually he's quite a smart player, but as I said, I can't comment. I will keep an eye on him. I know he gets on at West Ham. I think West Ham are looking quite interesting this season. Really good manager. As I said, it's been a really good window for them. And certainly sounds like the kind of player we should be taking notice of.
Maybe we'll sign him next year after a good season to replace Lovren.
That'll be the day.
That'll be the day. That'll be the day you're most happy. But we'll make you happy right now, actually. So the last segment we want to do on this podcast. So recently, since the turn of the calendar year, for some reason on the forums, there's been one player that's been talked about, non-Liverpool player, that's been talked about endlessly for some reason, and that's Adama Traore. We don't really know why. We're not interested in trying to figure out why, but he made a big money move this window, and he made a big money move to a team that I mentioned this to you guys yesterday. I can't think of another promoted team that has come up with such high expectations than Wolves have. Wolves are, I believe, 8th favorite for the championship this year. The 8th favorite.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. The money they've spent
from I don't know who the betting folks are, but the bookies have them as the 8th favorite. So they come in with ridiculous expectations, and here comes a guy that I don't particularly think you should be placing expectations on. So, Paul, you've had many a battle on the forums.
I thought it's been the day where I got to stop talking about the Adama Traore, but okay, I'll humor you.
Why don't you go ahead and just let us know what you think about Adama. Slander him all you want.
I won't be slandering him. Everything that I'm going to say will be a perfectly accurate description of what kind of player Adama Traore is. Breaking your club records transfer fee at 18 million for a player who needed to not be in the Premier League and to join a Pulis side to start performing. That's risky. And listen, like, there's obvious talent there. You know, he's not useless. He can dribble. But my issue with Adama Traore is that's all he can do. And if I were a Premier League manager, if I were, managing a team like, let's say, Liverpool or Man United or Man City, if I were briefing my team to play against Wolves, I wouldn't focus on Adama Traore. Because he gets on the ball, you know what he's going to do. He's predictable, he'll run with it, and he runs with it very well. But his issue is that he gives the ball away quite a lot. He only makes about 66% of his passes, and that was in the Championship. He gives the ball away a third of the time he attempts to pass. He dribbles like 7 times a game. That's what it amounts to as a player who, yeah, he's athletic, I'll give him that. He's skillful, I'll give him that. But there's very little going on between the ears. So I just don't understand what they've seen in him that makes them think, okay, he's worth 18 million quid of our money, because his game intelligence is such a problem. And you're going to have to teach a lot of tactical discipline to a player who he's almost 23. He's never really shown a great deal of tactical discipline. You're trying to teach something that has never existed in his game. I'm not convinced he can do it. And to be honest, there was talk of him on the forum of getting a big money move to a big team, to like a Bayern or a Chelsea. That one was mooted. I'm not surprised that Wolves has been his ceiling, but I am surprised that a team as ambitious as Wolves has taken a gamble on him, because I don't think he's a good fit for them.
Hassan?
Why, Wolves paid 18 million for him? I don't have a damn a clue. And yes, I just waited that long for that pun.
Oh, it was worth the wait.
But you're mentioning his dribbles. I mean, he averaged 7 per game last season, which is a ridiculous number. I mean, Neymar, because he went to PSG, was averaging around that, if I'm not mistaken. And that's because, he could get the ball and do whatever he wants in France. Adama, I mean, 66% of his passes have been, that's his pass success rate. I guess you can argue, 66% of the time it works every time. If you want to, really stretch it.
Man reference, I love it.
Glad you understood it. He had 5 goals and 10 assists last season. It's not like those aren't even Tomlin's numbers in the Championship. And yes, he has pace. Yes, he can go past people. But if I'm not mistaken, with Borough, when they were in the Premier League, his first assist in the league, his first goal or assist, was a shot that accidentally came to the feet of Negredo, who just finished it. That sort of sums him up, because maybe his crossing should be, let me just shoot it and maybe someone will touch it. Maybe it's like Aaron Lennon. Even Aaron Lennon, Aaron Lennon, people used to talk about his end product. Aaron Lennon at least used to, have those low crosses, which at least look dangerous. Adama is it's brutal to watch him cross the ball at times. I mean, brutal because it literally might hit, the crowd on the other side of the stadium. But especially with Wolves, they're playing with wing backs, and I'm not sure he can do that job. can he play in the two right behind the striker in their 3-4-3? I'm not sure. What is he? I think he's the sort of guy who, if you have him for like 10 minutes a game, just to make defenders wonder what to do with him, maybe that works out. For 90 minutes, I don't get the signing for Wolves.
Okay, two-part question here. Do you rate Harry Wilson more than you rate Adama Traore? And the part two of this is if he maxes out his potential, how good is he?
Well,
Paul, why don't you go, Paul?
Yeah, all right. I'll dive in. I do rate Harry Wilson higher. I think he's got a higher ceiling. I think it's because he's more balanced. With Traore, as I said, it's quite predictable. He really sticks to one routine, whereas I think Wilson's more capable of varying his game. Yeah, he can dribble, but I think he can shoot. He can slide players in a bit more easily. As far as ceiling, it's really hard to know because based on performances in the Championship, it's difficult to gauge. If I had to bet money on it, I wouldn't say that I thought he would necessarily make it at Liverpool. I think maybe he could be a good backup player or a good squad player for us at some point, but I think he'll hit the heights of, at the very least, a decent Premier League player. I don't think the Championship is his ceiling. I think he'll make it as a Premier League player at some point. At Liverpool, maybe not, but I think whatever happens, he'll do well somewhere in this league.
I'll ask you this. At the age of 29, will he be better than Yannick Bolasie?
Probably. Yeah, I don't see why not. I think Bolasie's also quite flash in the pan. And I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say with such a young player, but some of the stuff I've seen from Harry Wilson, I quite like him in front of goal. I've seen him actually do some really good things there. He's got a really good finish on him. I think he's got a very good cross. He's a good passer as well. So I think he's got a good basis to work on. As for where he'll end up, who knows? But I think he's got the potential to be a good Premier League player.
Hassan, I'll pose the same to you. Better than Harry Wilson, or who do you rate higher, Harry Wilson or him, and what's his ceiling?
I won't say I can compare him to Harry Wilson because I haven't seen much of Harry Wilson. I've seen Adama more. But if you're opening up a discussion about whether you're better than Harry Wilson, why pay 18 million pounds for him? And you mentioned Yannick Bolasie. I'm not sure Adama Traore will be a Yannick Bolasie even. Like Yannick Bolasie ended up being like, sure, he isn't a great player, but if at Palace, Palace would like to have a Yannick Bolasie. I'm not sure many Premier League sides would like to have an Adama Traore. Bolasie is a professional. He is disciplined. He knows his role. He's fine on the ball, a bit erratic. Is Adama a bit more, different than that? I mean, Bolasie is more disciplined than Adama Traore. So, I don't get why not just wait and see, because it wasn't even a full season that Adama Traore really played well in. It was more like half a season after Pulis came in. And if you need Tony Pulis to just figure you out, what was wrong with you?
Exactly.
Like if your attacking output is improving after Tony Pulis has come to your side, what were you doing before that was so horrific that it wasn't working out? Like, he's following in the footsteps of greats like Liam Lawrence and Jermaine Pennant after his peak, and Matthew Etherington. So, just why?
Okay. Look, Matthew Etherington was better at West Ham. Okay, so you can't compare him.
It wasn't I wasn't dissing Matthew Etherington, but at no point in our lives were where we were saying, you know what, Matthew Etheridge, 18 million pounds. That's out of the discussion. Like if Adama Traore signed for Wolves for 6 billion, for example, don't think we would have talked about much. Problem is, it's 18.
18 is not a lot, not in today's inflated market. Like,
Yeah, but
Isn't it
Fulham
still
got
like more
Shirley
than
on
three
loan.
times what they paid? Yeah, it's still
Shirley
not good
went on
value.
loan. Shirley went on loan to Fulham. Yes, Shirley has struggled lately. You'd still bet on him more than you bet on Adama Traore. Yarmolenko has done much more in his career. Went for 17, I think.
Yeah.
So why Adama Traore specifically? Why the need for someone like that? And where does he even fit? That's my question.
he probably replaces Doherty over there on the right. Probably.
Adama Traore as a right wing back. It's like when Wenger played Chamberlain as a right wing back, or when Brendan Rodgers had that spell where he in the second half he'd had Lallana over there.
Listen, Brendan played Stuart Downing at left back, and it was successful. So don't question Brendan's.
And he played Jose Enrique as a left winger.
Oh
People
Jesus!
worked.
forget that part. He had Downing at left back and then Enrique as a left winger.
It worked.
And somehow we actually convinced ourselves this made sense.
But it worked.
Did it? Because it lasted like a few games and then he changed it. And he signed 2 players and we didn't see and Downing was a right winger. So it didn't really work.
It worked. Okay.
We were 12th in the league and Giorgio Shelby was our backup striker.
Oh God!
I got the win against West Ham, to be fair.
He got the winner, right?
And he got 2 against Young Boys.
Sterling played him in, I think, right? Was it?
I just remembered a bald guy scoring the winner for us, so I can't really tell.
I remember that game. I was so happy when we scored that goal. But I forgot that it was Jonjo who scored it. But look, the point is that he's going to play right wing back. He's not going to play up front. He's not going to play in that front 3 or the 2 behind Jimenez or whoever they want to play up front. He's not going to be playing there. That's going to be Jota and Costa or Caballero, whoever they want to play.
Maybe they should play him up top. Maybe Adama Traore's problem is that he gets the ball and he has to figure out what to do with it. Maybe if you tell him, I don't want you on the ball, then you'd have a pacey, strong guy in the middle who can do stuff. Maybe that's the answer to his problems.
He's going to be playing. He's going to be playing right wing back. I'm certain of it.
Well, I hope so. Like, I can't wait for him to just get lost, just turn around like 30 times around himself, lose the ball, and a counterattack happens on his side.
Okay, Paul is not going to get this reference, but would you compare him to a Washington Wizards JaVale McGee?
No.
I don't think anyone on the forum's getting that reference, by the way.
No, I wouldn't compare him to JaVale McGee. I would say he is a bit more like Emmanuel Mudiay.
That's not bad.
You guys just do this. I'll just sit here. You let me know when you're done. Yeah?
Just move on. If you think that's not bad, just move on.
It's not that bad.
Just move on.
All right, fine. Let's just.
Basically, we're comparing him to players who might struggle in the Scottish Premier League equivalent stuff. Something like that. For
the thing with Traore that got me I would say not riled up, but at least scratching my head was when he was compared to Pulisic. That was the area where I felt was, wait a minute, why are we doing this? I don't think that he's I think he's 18 million. Okay, maybe that's a touch too much, but maybe something like 15. I mean, Jordan, as I mentioned before we went live, Jordan Ibe was 16 million. That was a couple of years ago, before the inflation took place in the market. So it's not that bad of a deal. And I think he's better than Ibe. So I don't know where that.
Congratulations, Adama Traore. You're better than Jordan Ibe. As for the Pulisic comparison, I mean, they both, have two legs, I guess. So there's some sort of comparison there.
All right, guys. This was fun. I'm glad that we ended it off on a Adama note because this is something that we needed to finally get off our chests. But it was fun to talk to you guys again. It was fun to watch Liverpool win 4-0, and I'm expecting a good season.
We're hoping for that.
Yeah, I'm expecting it.
100%.
Absolutely. So let's just sign off here, and we'll pick it up in maybe a few weeks.
Sounds good.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
See you guys.
See ya.